Self-doubt. It's that crippling feeling that we've all experienced before we're about to do something that might potentially change our life for the better. It's that stronghold that's holding us back and makes us think that we can't do anything more than what we're currently doing. If you are somebody that's experienced self-doubt, I've been there multiple occasions. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand three things. First of all, you're going to understand what self-doubt actually is. Second of all, you're going to understand the process of self-doubt and how we experience it. But third of all, and most importantly, you're going to understand how to get rid of that crippling feeling that self-doubt can bring. Now, I'm not promising that you're never going to feel self-doubt again. That would be unrealistic, and I'm not a magician. Now, what I am promising is that crippling experience that self-doubt can bring when we're about to do something or we want to try something, we're going to get rid of that. So sit tight. We're going to break it down. Self-doubt. Let's get into it. So first of all, self-doubt. We're going to break it down definitionally, and then we're going to attack every part of the definition and make this word work for us. So first of all, lack of confidence in oneself and one's abilities. That's the definition of self-doubt that you'll get. Now let's break this down. Lack of confidence. So the word confidence is not what we think it is. Confidence does not mean, I feel confident. Confidence, in fact, it comes from the Latin origin of confidor, which means full trust. Now, when we look at it like that, it changes the way that we look at confidence. Confidence means, or the origin of confidence means full trust. Hold that full. In oneself. Now, oneself actually means the belief system. Our belief system is ourself. How we conceptualize the self is the self. How we see ourselves is the self. Now, this is going to make sense as well. And then the third one is our abilities, our talent, our skill, or our proficiency in a particular area. How good we actually are at doing something. Now, we're going to get back to this, but let's look at each word and understand how this manifests into self-doubt by going through the process. Actually, before that, this self-doubt is actually quite a sensitive topic. And I don't want to be here talking about sensitive stuff that I'm not qualified about. So I wanted to give you an understanding of how self-doubt has manifested in my life before and stopped me doing a bunch of things that I could have done. Now, I brought a picture here from a video that I made about confidence, about how to build confidence as somebody that never used to have it. And there's 3 pictures. I said anxious, lost, and 1,000 people. But what I want to show you is where self-doubt is. Self-doubt was not actually in the first and second picture because I was never doing anything outside of my comfort zone. Self-doubt actually came in that third picture where it says 1,000 people. Now, it's hard to believe on that picture because you can't see the context, but I was sitting there and I was like this. My hands were trembling. I had never spoken in front of that many people in my life. Almost to the point, that crippling feeling of self-doubt, as we mentioned at the start, almost to the point where I thought I'd have to get off stage and I'd be unable to do it. Now, maybe you've experienced this before. I'm sure that you've experienced this before. Self-doubt has stopped you in a pivotal moment. There might have been a job opportunity that popped up. So there might have been a job opportunity one time that popped up and you didn't go for it because you didn't think you was good enough, qualified, or able to do the job. There might have been a girl or someone you wanted to go and speak to and you viewed her as above your league, outside of your league, so you never went and spoke to her because you had doubt over self. There might have been a time where you was going to perform at a sport. You might have wanted to turn on the camera, but you doubt yourself, so you don't do it. Now, self-doubt is very natural. However, how we experience it is not how it's meant to be experienced. And we're going to be getting onto exactly how to experience it in the right way, not how to get rid of it. But first of all, we need to understand the process. So the process, what self-doubt? We've got the title. How does self-doubt manifest into us experiencing it? How do we experience self-doubt? So first of all, let's get into it. Self-doubt is the perceived threat of state change due to comfort being under attack. Now let's break this down. The perceived threat of our state change due to comfort being under attack. So I want you to picture this. You've woken up, and what do we normally do? Well, we wake up, we shower, we brush our teeth, we get changed, and then we go into our work and do what we do. And we probably do that most days. And there's not many times that our schedule or our rhythm is broken. Now those two words are very important, schedule and rhythm. There's not many times that those schedule or rhythm is broken. So there's not many times that we feel like we're under attack because our state isn't changing. Second of all, the change or the new thing is perceived as a bad thing due to our current state feeling under attack. Now, I want to give you an example. On a normal day, unless you're somebody, I don't know, you might be speaking in front of thousands of people, but on a normal day, most of us will not wake up and then go and speak in front of 10,000 people. So if the opportunity came to go and speak in front of 10,000 people, that would put our body into a state of threat because the state is going to change and our comfort is going to be under attack, which means our regular system and structure that we operate in on a daily basis is about to be under attack because it's a new thing. Now hold this thought, because this ties into exactly how we get rid of the crippling experience of self-doubt. And third of all, these perceptions lead to an emotional trigger of doubt. So how we perceive this bad thing, this new thing, this thing outside of our box that we operate in, which I'm not even attacking the box. This doesn't mean that the system and structure that we operate in on a daily basis is bad. It's good. It's good to have systems and structures. We don't just sporadically and randomly do stuff every day, or it feel weird. We like to have a schedule. We like to have, do you know what I mean, a calendar, I don't know, a system every day. That's great. However, our perceptions to anything outside of this box that we operate in causes an emotional trigger. And that emotional trigger is the doubt. So we're going to probably get back to the process and understand it a little bit more. But now we're going to get into the solution. Simply, how do we redefine, reframe, reimagine, re-experience self-doubt to work for us? As I said at the start, this video is not about getting rid of self-doubt. That's impossible almost. And what I mean by impossible is it's not like you're not going to be able to get rid of self-doubt. And I can talk about this because I speak with pro footballers, with athletes, with people massive on a social media page. In fact, I had a conversation yesterday with someone who probably popped up on your algorithm on your YouTube. These people are not robots. They experience self-doubt. They very much do. However, their experience of self-doubt has been reframed. And that's what we're going to get into now. I didn't click when I wanted to do it. It was meant to change. Let me change it. There we go. All right. So the solution. So we're going to be breaking this down as deeply as we can possibly break it down and make it make as much sense as possible. So first of all, self-doubt is an effect, which means it's a byproduct of something else. So we're going to change the cause and not the effect. Like with many things, we see the manifestation of it, but you don't see what caused the manifestation of it. So for example, we wake up and we're doing our regular routine. That's actually the word I was looking for earlier, routine. So we're doing our regular routine as normal, brush our teeth, go to work, do this. But if that day at work, there's a random opportunity to go somewhere and speak in front of 1,000 people, for example, we'll use that one. This is the body, the system, the routine, it's outside of the boundaries that we operate in. Not the effect, it's the cause that dictates how we experience that situation. If that makes sense. So let's tap into our cause. What causes us to experience self-doubt in such a crippling way? First of all, the cause is our belief system, which informs our perception. Now, stay with me. Our belief system, remember, let's go back to the start. Our belief system is the self. How we conceptualize us, how we conceptualize ourselves is our belief system. How we think we operate, our attributes, our characteristics, our personalities, and then obviously by extension, our abilities. Now let's go forward. Boom, boom. So our belief system is what informs our perception. So if, for example, We're going to use an example outside self-doubt. So if you believe you are somebody that is kind and then you speak to somebody in a rude way, you're going to perceive it as a negative thing. Why? Because you view yourself as kind. Likewise, reverse it. There's some psychopaths that this is going into the science of the psychology of psychopaths, by the way. A psychopath who thinks that speaking to people rude and being really harsh all the time and degrading people, doing all whatever. Let's not get into that. But that person, their belief system is that their behavior is normal. So then, if they did anything outside of that belief system, if they suddenly started to become kind, their perception would be that the kind thing is the wrong thing. So this ties into it's not things that it make us experience feelings, it's our belief system before the thing has actually happened. So let's go back to the start. We need to change the cause and not the effect. We're going to change what causes us to experience self-doubt. We're not going to change self-doubt. And next, belief that self-doubt is a bad thing creates a negative experience of self-doubt. So for example, again, we've looked at, let's use the example of setting up a camera and speaking on camera. Something that for me, I started 2-3 months after that. I wanted to start because the first 2-3 months I was worried about what people would think, what people would say, would I be good enough, blah, 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 all that stuff that self-doubt brings and is crippling, okay? And it stopped me for a long period of time. However, it's because I viewed those things as a bad thing. It's because I viewed stepping outside of my comfort zone in order to do something as a bad thing. So, the point. Belief that self-doubt is a bad thing creates a negative experience of self-doubt. Remember, we said this isn't about getting rid of self-doubt. This is about believing that self-doubt is actually a positive. Now, if you actually think about it like this, the precursor to any progression, the thing before any progression is simply stepping outside of your box. So if we understand that we have to, in order to progress at anything, we have to do something that we don't normally do on a daily basis in order to progress. So the example of speaking in front of people, in order to become good at speaking in front of people, you need to, at some point, speak in front of a person. Which means you need to step outside of the box in which you are operating in. If you don't speak to anyone, you need to speak to someone to step out, and then you step out of that box to another, and then it leads from 10 people to 100,000. That's the process. However, if we view speaking to somebody as a bad thing, based on the consequences that it might occur. So we go up to a girl on the street that you like, you say she looks nice, and you go up to her. And if you see rejection, for example, as a bad thing, there's a consequence of rejection, of course. There is a consequence of rejection if you go up to her and speak to her. However, if you see the rejection as a bad thing, then that's going to stop you doing it. However, if you see the rejection as an opportunity to get better, all right, cool, I've gone up. Oh, it didn't go well, she didn't give me a number, whatever, cool. Next time I go up, sorry, just go back to that. How did that make me feel? Well, I've done this before. I'll tell you how it makes you feel. It makes you feel like butters. So I've gone up there. Haven't got the number. She got a boyfriend. Yeah, cool, she does. And then makes you feel bad. Makes you feel like you're not nice. However, if we view that rejection as a signpost in order for something that we need to improve on, it changes the feeling, the very feeling. Again, let's go back to the cause. So it's not the thing. The rejection ain't the thing. Rejection. All right, got rejected. However, that rejection for one person could be, oh my days, I'm not doing this thing again. I'm never doing that again. Or that rejection for another person could be, great, right, fantastic. That's a signpost. So how did I go up to her? Maybe my tonality was good. Right. How did I walk up? Did I walk up slow? Did I walk up fast? You know what I mean? Did I greet her before asking for a number? They've both experienced rejection. However, one has experienced the rejection as a positive thing and as a signpost, and the other person has experienced rejection as the world ending. Now, it's when we experience things as the world ending, which causes the crippling experience of self-doubt. Now, the headline, we're going to get into the headline for getting rid of that crippling feeling of self-doubt. We need to change the one change that worked, the one change that took me from, as I said, the person that had crippling anxiety before every football match I would play to the point where I wouldn't play well. Going from someone, I I mean this. I used to go to training, football training, and I would score 100. I'd score bare goals. I'd score loads of goals. I'd be the best player in training, and then I'd go to a match. I'd be the worst player. How does that make sense? It's because I perceived pressure, and I perceived the self-doubt as a bad thing, which then manifested into my performance decreasing, and it's crippling. And it was only when I started to perceive self-doubt as a good thing, as a signpost to, oh, I haven't tried this before, as a signpost that, irrespective of the result of this thing that I'm doing outside of my box, I'm going to take the information and the experience, and I'm going to go back to the drawing board and change something or add something new or take away something that didn't work. So simply, the self-doubt can be changed at the cause by our belief system. Our belief system will only change based on how we see the thing that we're doing. So if we view something as a negative, then we will by extension experience it in a negative way. Whereas if we view, for example, rejection as a positive, rejection is fantastic, by the way. It's a great character builder in every way. Sales, relationships, anything. Great character builder. But that's another video. But if we view rejection as a positive, as a signpost, as an opportunity, then it changes the way that we experience rejection. That's the headline of this. So view the next thing you do, the next time you turn on the camera, the next time you have an opportunity that you would normally say, oh, I'm not too sure because of self-doubt. Look at that and think, irrespective of the result, here's a bunch of positives that I can take out of that situation, and it will turn you into a beast. You self-doubt, you feel it, but it's a signpost and it's a good thing. However, I'm rambling. I'm going on a tangent. I hope this explains self-doubt and the root of self-doubt so that you can start making changes to self-doubt. This is by no means something I've mastered. I still experience it. However, this is something I had to get to grips with in order to take my life to the next level. And that, whether that was job opportunities, business, getting in shape, whatever it is, these things that, we operate inside of the walls that we create. That is very simple. So we need to expand our walls. But yeah, it's been a good one. Love for the love, and see you in the next one.